Think Realty Nation, it's your host, Abhi. Welcome to the Think Realty podcast. It's going to be a good one for you today. We're talking to an investor who has a very compelling story. And from time to time, it's really important to kind of dig into stories and really understand somebody's background and kind of their perspective on investing, because quite frankly, it helps us to frame our own perspective. I know when I first started kind of in the real estate space, entrepreneurial space, I was looking to stories and I was looking to inspiration and different perspectives and ideas and concepts to help me put together my own construct on what it meant to be an investor. And so Paul White will be joining us in just a second to share his story, his background, and what he's up to today. Afterwards, we'll talk a little bit about Cincinnati may potentially require landlords to have security deposit insurance, which is kind of interesting. So just a quick tidbit on that after our interview with Paul White. So that being said, the podcast sponsor for today is Narada Real Estate Investments. I can't do the podcast without Narada. Great guys over there. Great guys and gals. Narada Real Estate Investments is your premier source for cash flow investment property. You can visit them at www.turnkeyrealestateInvestments.com. So let's get inspired. Mr. White, welcome to the show.
Abhi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Give us a little 1-2 punch. Who are you, your background, and what do you do today?
Wow, I might take another jab or two after that too. Actually, I am trained as an orthodontist, so I've spent the better part of my adult life giving people beautiful smiles and helping them in that regard, and so that's where I've concentrated most of my energy. And a bunch of years ago, it became apparent to me that all the things that had been taught as a youngster were, I won't say lies, but they just weren't true, and so that started me on a journey, just like all of us, some of us older guys, I may not speak for you, but as older guys, we were taught to save all our money, pay off all our debts, and put your money in the stock market. And that's exactly what I did.
So what do you think is basically, what do you think is fundamentally flawed with that model?
Biggest thing is you have no control. You have absolutely no control over Wall Street. It's a game, and we have, us, we're just nobody. And we're not even a big player. We're nobody, and they manipulate the markets, and all we can do is just hang on for dear life and hope and guess and try to beat the market. I've never seen anybody do that. So, and I certainly couldn't do it.
Yeah, and everybody talks about like this market manipulation and stuff, and I've heard a lot about that. And the only thing that I do from an equities perspective is I'll take a look at index funds and ETFs. That's really my world. Outside of that, I'm a business guy. I enjoy investing in businesses and real estate. Where have you found the most kind of manipulation to occur?
Oh gosh, I would say that probably it's related to sectors. Like, big tech can jump in or big investment can jump in and put a ton of money in one sector and either send it way up or send it way down, and you don't have the ability to see that coming. And once you realize it's a problem, it's too late. Most investors are buying high and selling low, way behind the curve. So and that was again my experience as well. I guess the aha moment for me was when I started to understand cash flow and the difference between cash flow and wealth, and that was a huge moment for me. And once I understood wealth, and I went, oh, so you mean if I'm not working, I need to still be making money? Warren Buffett famously said, if you're not making money while you sleep, you're going to work till you die. And that was a big shock for me. And so then it became apparent to me. I called my broker, and by then I had taken over all my investments, so my broker was just name only. And I asked him to sort of show me, I had a sizable amount of money invested in the market, and I asked him to show me how much money that was generating. And I was shocked to find it would probably cover my burn rate for about a month. And I'd worked and scraped all those years. It was a little scary, and so that's when I started looking for other alternative investments.
So I'm really opposed to like CDs, right? Like these terrible financial instruments that we're all taught is supposed to be a safe and secure thing. And, though safe and secure, it's not going to earn you a whole lot of interest really at all. And we're never taught as kids how to invest. There's no system for that. So when you had your aha moment, you're like, well, geez, I have no control. I like the Warren Buffett style, and the fact that you made less money with your entire like brokerage account that you would even need to survive. How do you reconcile that? I'm sure at some point you threw in your hat and you said, I'm done, right? Like, this is hogwash. I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, well, I think it's a mindset change first and foremost, and so for me, I'm never done. There's an obstacle in my way. How do I get around it, or what other mindset do I have to make? And for me, growing up as a kid, there was two choices: either go outside and play or read, and I always chose to go outside and play. And in my adult life, I've realized that all the really successful people I've met are voracious readers, and so now I read self-help books day and night, and evidently I need a lot of help. So, playing a little catch up at my age is a little more of a challenge.
That's funny. I was the exact same way. When I was growing up, I grew up in the 90s, and I didn't get my first cell phone until college, and it was a Motorola V600 flip phone, and I remember that phone very vividly. We didn't have phones growing up, so like you, I mean, you're either getting beat up outside or playing flag football or capture the flag or something, or you're at home reading and studying or doing homework. And so I always used to go out and play. And now I agree. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you read more books than I do, but I'm reading a lot, as much as I can. So I'm with you. So what are you up to today?
Well, my alternative investments have become real estate investments, and even like the stock market, they tell you to be diversified. I'm that in spades. So I invest in own some single-family, multifamily real estate, and have been involved in syndications for quite a while, both on the investment side and on the sponsorship side, mainly self-storage and multifamily with those. I've done a lot of hard money lending. I like that. There's a fair amount of work to that. So, the term passive investor probably isn't true if you want to be successful at it, but
That's right.
You've got to add something you can bolt on. And then I've been doing mortgage notes as well. So I do a little bit of everything. And that's been fun. I like the excitement of learning new things, and I'm never bored. I guess I have investor ADD anyway, so it keeps me moving, and I like that.
I'm with you. I love mortgage notes. Lending is a lot of fun. I don't do a whole lot of flipping as much anymore. But I love what you said about just your passive income strategy. If you're only looking for passive income, it's you're not really seeking. You're not going to get the gains that you're really seeking, essentially.
No doubt, and I have some great stories about that as well. So when I first got into real estate, it was a group of dentists and other professionals, and in a mastermind of sorts. And I know you had a friend of mine, Tom Olson, on not too long ago talking about masterminds, and they're phenomenal if you get the right one. And it was really funny because at first we're going, all right, what are you doing? What are you doing? And we're all trying to figure it out, right? And what's interesting to me, there's a certain amount of trust involved in those groups. And so we tend to have more money than knowledge, which can be a dangerous combination. So we can end up with more knowledge and less money in the long run if we're not careful.
That's right.
Which like a friend of mine has famously said, I never make a bad investment. Sometimes I just pay a lot of money for some information. And so otherwise known as a bad investment, but no one never to do that again.
So,
but anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, on your journey of this entire of the alternative investment class, you learned a lot. You've jumped into the right masterminds, and you thought, okay, I want to invest for the future. Sure. And approximately how long ago was that? Because you're like in your mid-30s right now, so I'm assuming you're probably like 28 when you realized this.
I love that. You're my favorite person already. So when you were in college, I was having kids. So, in the middle of a practice. So yeah, probably I've always done a little something, but you hear the stories of people that either aren't educated or aren't in the right places where they dabble. And so most of the people I met say, oh yeah, I tried real estate and it failed miserably. I got taken for this, or I didn't make any money, or had these issues. And I think if you're not prepared for those things, riding the market cycles and, having conditions flip and not being prepared for that, and not having the education or the system around you, ecosystem, to be able to call on friends that know somebody or have an attorney or an investing company or friends that you know. I mean, you need a whole, cycle of people around you to be able to help.
And what I've also found to be really helpful is these masterminds that you speak of. And yes, there are great masterminds and there are terrible masterminds. And you want to find the right ones. So if you're thinking about a mastermind, just like Paul said, you really just pay attention. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, no doubt.
What do you tell somebody that is, say, in their mid 60s, early 70s, and they're thinking, well, geez, I've made a good amount of money. I'm a dentist or a doctor or a healthcare professional, and I'm just concerned that I'm not getting the returns that I want in the equity side of things, and I want to check out this alternative investment class. I don't want to do a whole lot of work with it. I'm probably going to be getting some type of RMDs, my required minimum distributions, in the next couple of years. What do I do? Like, how do I go down that road of knowing where to put my money if I have a lot of it, but I don't have the knowledge behind it? A, is it too late? And B, what do I do?
Well, it's never too late. And you have a shorter runway. And so you have to make investments with that thought in mind. And there's two components, I think, at that age. One is building wealth, and then the other is building a legacy. And so you have to approach your investments maybe a little bit different than you would when you're in your 30s. And so you want to sort of plan accordingly. And yet you have to be careful, because a lot of money and little knowledge can get you in trouble, and you can lose your hard-earned money really fast. And I've seen it happen. And like I said, most professionals tend to just trust people, because we in general give people advice that we wholeheartedly believe, and we would do anything to make their treatment go as planned. And if it goes detrimentally, we'll actually dip into our own pockets to make it right for people. That's just the nature of who we are. And I don't think we're prepared for people that are, it's your responsibility, here's the deal, you make up for it. And learning a whole lifetime's worth of investing is hard. So I think you need to surround yourself with people that you trust. And that's a key piece. I think somebody that you can trust that is also doing what he's recommending. So that's even right. Some syndications that we talk about, you'll see syndications where the sponsors have no money in the deal, and there's no commitment to the success of that thing. They're getting your money and they're getting fees up front. And if it fails, they can pull out and go, and they haven't lost anything, right? And so
that's right.
I think there's some education is required. So I think before you find somebody trusted, but then you start reading some things that will bring you up to speed. And I think a mastermind is probably the best way. And the really good ones tend to have a little higher price tag to them, but that's your education. I mean, most of us paid a lot of money for our education.
That's right.
And I think you've worked so hard to create, amass this money that you have, and you can lose it really quickly if you're not careful. And yet at the same time, we've all just given money to some guy we don't even know, who's maybe passed a Series 7 test, and then he sends us a statement, and we have no idea how it's performing. We just know there's some money in our bank account. That's all we know.
Yeah, it drives me crazy, right? Like, we're totally okay. We're totally okay losing money in the stock market, and we can justify that.
Sure.
And we're totally okay handing our money to somebody, like you said, very candidly, that has passed an exam, which, sir, if you decided to study for, you could probably pass as well. Right? Like, who's it? Kiyosaki said this, right? It's the definition of a broker means that they're broker than you are.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of true. And I agree with what you're saying about masterminds, right? If there is some type of economic slowdown in the future, you can go to these folks that are part of your mastermind, and you don't want a mastermind that's like your kind of cheap mastermind. You want people in there that are financially vested, they're committed to this process, they're committed to learning, because they may know something you don't, and vice versa, and now you're learning from each other, so that if there is some type of slowdown or some type of plateau in the marketplace, then y'all can brainstorm and mastermind a strategy so that everybody wins. That's the point.
Yeah, no doubt. And then there's synergy in that too, because especially if you're using a self-directed IRA to invest, there's some restrictions in who you can invest with and who you can. And so if you have a trusted group of people, there can be a lot of synergy that can benefit all in the group. So, there's a lot to be gained from doing that.
But
yet, even in this real estate space, where we see a lot of professionals moving to, I see that same problem existing where they don't. I mean, I can't tell you how many masterminds I've been to in REITs where I say, so how much money are you making? And they have no idea. I get one or two answers. I don't know, Or another version of I don't know is, I don't know, I think about 10 to 15% because that's what they were told they were going to get, right?
Right.
Or there's one or two guys that may know sort of, but no one knows exactly what they have. And I think, my gosh, this is the most money, this is everything you have, or most of what you have in investments, and you don't even know how they're performing. And none of us would run our businesses or our practices without numbers, right? And there's this, I don't know if you've heard it, but the Oracle's NetSuite commercial where it says, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business.
Yeah.
And yet we treat this like a hobby and not a business. It's crazy to me. So
yeah, and in the world, let's talk about the syndication world, for example. There
Sure.
are folks out there that also treat syndications like a hobby and not their full-time gig.
Yep.
And these are the same people that will put zero into the deal, take a chunk of the profit up front in the form of points, and finder's fees of
Right.
6 to 9% of deal size. And it's like, what are you doing? So let's jump to some of the solutions that you found as a result of being in this space. You've made mistakes, you've made money, and now you have a formula. You have a way of doing things that you're working on to set yourself up to the point where you've done so now. You're financially free, and you're continuing to learn, and you're continuing to do things. Give me a little background on some of these solutions that you found to be most valuable to you, and what RealNumberz, your company, represents.
Those are great points. And sort of to pick up on what I've said, I think there are a lot of people out there with a fair amount of money invested, and they have no idea how much money they're making.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I started my investments, I'm getting excited about it, but I've got stuff in folders laid out on my pool table, and I'm doing active turnkey. So I'm buying courthouse step properties with somebody in Kansas City or, Alabama or wherever. And in the middle of a day, I'm getting a phone call that says, hey, we need another $18,000. And you know what I did? I'm a trusting guy.
Right.
I wired the money or sent the check, and there it goes. And what was so funny is after we created a solution, I went back and looked at, after we had a tenant in place, the rehab was completed. It's 2 months down the road. Finally started looking at my numbers, and the rehab budget was $8,000 over budget. And I called the developer and I said, what in the world is $8,000? What is this for? He goes, oh, it's for window replacement windows. And I go, well, that wasn't in the deal. He goes, yeah, but we just thought they should be put in there. I go, well, I would have liked to know. Well, I sent him the money and had no idea. So I would have liked to have been involved in the conversation. So, we've developed systems in place. So what really happened for us is when I was going around asking people what they were doing, most people were doing nothing. A few people were putting stuff in folders and file cabinets, and then a couple guys were using spreadsheets, but nothing consistent. Even the spreadsheets were all over the place. And there are so many things that spreadsheets can't do. So I went to my son at first and I said, hey, he's a computer nerd. He's actually an expert. And I said, can you design a spreadsheet for me? Because I know lots of software, but Excel sort of intimidates me a little bit.
Right.
And,
so there's a real big difference. I'm going to have to talk to your son, right? Because there's a real big difference between expert and nerd, right? Like, here's the scale. From the left, here we go. From this side all the way over here. You got nerd and expert.
Yeah, he's expert. I paid for his expertise, and now it's a way for me to get some of my money back. So he's definitely an expert. And so what was funny is I asked him to design a spreadsheet for me, and so we started doing things, and I was just sort of getting frustrated. He goes, well, tell me what you want. And I listed all these things. He said, Dad, a spreadsheet can't do these things. He said, what you need is an app. I said, an app? Oh, an app. And I said, what's an app? And, so he started explaining this to me.
Yeah.
And so that's how we created our company, RealNumberz. And so it's exactly what it says. It is a way to organize, analyze, and track your investments with the least amount of time possible. And it's been amazing. We have been so excited. As a matter of fact, one of our clients, he was in one of the groups that I was in, and he had probably had at least $3 million, several $1 million invested over a period of a few years. And I said, hey, how much money are you making? He goes, I don't know. I said, well, don't you think you ought to know? He goes, well, maybe. And he said, I think it's 10 to 15%. And that same old line that I always hear. And so I said, well, I want to know if it's working before I start throwing my money in what you're doing. And so he spent probably, weekends for probably, 60 hours worth of time entering all of his transactions into a spreadsheet. And when it was all said and done and the dust settled, his 10 to 15% return was 3.7%.
Oh,
and he
gosh.
said, his jaw hit the ground. We're getting towards, what you get for a bank account now. And he went, holy shit. You can imagine his response.
Yeah, I would have had the same response.
Yeah, and so he dramatically. So once we're able to help him analyze what was there, he dramatically changed the type of investments he did and even who he did them with. So what we built into RealNumberz is not only organization, not only time savings, but it also has reminders built in. So it makes your stress level go way down. So if you have a note that's out and it's coming due, it'll let you know, hey, you got a note that's coming due. So that then you can start working on a deal before it sits in your self-directed IRA for a few months, losing income. So we call that yield drag. And then we've got reminders for all the important events. If you got rent that's due, and it doesn't come in, you get a late rent payment reminder, it lets you know. So you just stop to worry and you just can go about your life and not have to spend so much time all the time worrying about your investments.
That's right, because the concept of passive income or passive investing is sold as, well, I want to stay passive, but most of the time it is, in fact, very active and very much a pain in your posterior. So that's a little bit of a challenge.
Only if you want to make it work.
Yeah.
Only if you want to make it work. You can be passive if you want, but you can end up with a 3.7% return like my friend did. You can't trust everybody, right? It's going to be like Reagan said, trust but verify, right?
That's right.
And so what's crazy is I got a few months ago, I got a reminder, a late rent reminder, and I looked at it, it was $15. I go, well, something's screwy here. Yeah. So I went back and in our software, you actually have each asset has its own card. So it's got a picture of the asset, all the details of the asset. It's got its own ledger. And you have all the payments, and it also has analytics telling you what it's returning. And so it also stores all the documents, including a lease. So I went and pulled the lease for the current tenant. It turns out that they had signed for another year, and the rent had gone up by $15. And so he'd simply paid the old rent amounts and just wrote a check and kept going. Well, I called the property manager and I said, hey, did you know? He said, nope, we didn't even know it. I go, great. Well, that would have gone on for a whole year. And if you had, hundreds and hundreds of properties across all those, what would happen, right?
Right.
So it's a way, and I didn't even know what happened, but the software told me that it happened, and so it was an incredible thing. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. I'll tell you what really helps, because a lot of us are using self-directed IRAs, and I don't think I understood what custodian meant. Custodian means we'll keep your stuff, and that's pretty much it.
That's it. There's no tracking of any kind.
None. And I thought, oh my gosh. And we had one of our clients, he went back and looked, oh my God, they missed a $1,500 payment from like 2 years ago. And he didn't catch it. And then half the payments are coming in late. Not that matters much, but those are just things that you want to know. Right. If you're on top of them, calling your investor or your borrower and say, hey, where's my money? You're going to know the guy that I'm going to pay first is you, because you're on top of your game.
That's right. So if I wanted to learn more about RealNumberz, and we got about another 30 seconds here, if I want to learn more about RealNumberz and how to get in touch, just ask kind of these questions, because there are a lot of folks out there very similar to your mindset, and they're like, well, geez, I want something more for my money, but the problem is I don't know, I have to track it, and I have to go hire my nerd expert son to develop a spreadsheet, now an app. How do I get in touch? What do I need to do to say hello and potentially have that conversation with you?
Yeah, sure. Well, for number one, you couldn't afford your nerd son to do that, because I can tell you how much it costs. It is ridiculously expensive, and we're still developing, so the meter's still running. But no one will go out on your own. It's prohibitive. The website address is www.realnumberz with a Z, all one word, .com, realnumberz.com. There's actually a free trial if you want to try that. We're always available. If you just leave, we have a chat. So if you have a question, we're certainly happy to do that. And I'm happy to help in any way that I can as well. But, the response that we've gotten from our clients has been amazing. They go, where has this been? I go, nowhere. That's why we invented it. There was nothing out there like this. Yeah. And, other than a dead spreadsheet, and you got to keep all your other stuff somewhere else. I mean, I have been on a beach somewhere and closed a lending deal with a push of a button, because it auto calculates what your payoff is based on the closing date. I mean, it's incredible what it does, and you should see what it does with notes. It's amazing. So, and we're still developing, always.
Well, geez, I need to trial this. This is going to be great.
Please do.
I would love to make that happen. So I'm going to be in touch for sure. Like that's going to be great. But anybody watching, anybody listening, go to RealNumberz with a Z instead of an S, realnumberz.com, and reach out to Paul and his team and start tracking your stuff, because if you're not tracking it, it's not being made, and you're going to lose it at some point in time. It's
you will.
It's like that sock that keeps getting eaten by the dryer, right? Like, at some point in time, you're going to have no socks. That's a terrible analogy. but I'm running with
No, I
it.
think
That's okay. That's okay. Paul, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Realnumbers with a Z.com.
Thank you, Abhi. Good talking to you.
You got it. Likewise, Paul. Thank you so much. Think Realty Nation, this next segment is brought to you by Real Property Management, which is the largest residential property management franchise in North America, managing tens of thousands of properties for individuals, investors, and institutions throughout the country. Learn more at realpropertymgt.com or call 888-806-7088. Kind of an interesting topic coming out of Cincinnati, and this is on realestateinvestingtoday.com. Quote, the city of Cincinnati is considering legislation that would require landlords to accept security deposit insurance in lieu of a security deposit. I'll give that some more thought. According to CBS News, the newly introduced legislation would support free renters from having to hand over a large lump sum, instead direct landlords to accept a security deposit insurance policy as an alternative. So I'm reading this, and this sounds like this is like a joke. Okay, the timing is especially interesting as Cincinnati recently enacted a series of laws making it tougher for evictions. National RIA's Charles Tassel pointed out that Cincinnati has around 82,000 total rental units, most of which are managed and owned by families. I don't know how to feel about this. What do you guys think? I don't like this. This is terrible. Yeah, so I was reading this title like, okay, this seems no, it's not interesting at all. Anyway, if you want to have a kind of candid conversation about this, we should. So you should reach out. Go to thinkrealty.com. You can find me anywhere online there. Here we go. Primarily here and here. These two. One, I can't get this right. No, there we go. 1 and 2. Instagram and LinkedIn are my two favorites. But this is kind of crazy. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm kind of at a loss of words. So we're just going to wrap up the show. You want to get in touch with Paul White and his team over at RealNumberz, feel free, www.realnumbers.com. You have questions for me, again, you know where to go, anywhere on social, or you can find me on thinkrealty.com. And we cannot make this podcast possible without the support of our sponsors. Today's sponsor of the podcast is Nevada Real Estate Investments, your premier source for cash flow investment property. Check them out. Visit www.turnkeyrealestateinvestments.com. It's been fun, Think Realty Nation. Until next time, happy investing.